What up? What's up? What's up, everybody? How are you folks doing? Thanks for spending a little time with me here. It's Saturday, April 5th, 2025. Things are getting warmer. Summer's coming. All that good stuff. I'm excited. Just a warm hello. Hope everybody's doing well. I had a stream set yesterday. I forgot to cancel it. I actually, it was ambitious. I had a procedure yesterday, and I was all anesthesiaed up, and so I couldn't do it. But here I am. I want to touch base with you folks. This is part of the quick market update on my YouTube at Cheds Trading. I teach professional TA, classical charting, Japanese candlestick theory. I take the complicated, the academic. I try to make it a little bit easier for you to understand. I really recommend you start with the Masterclass analysis playlist, and then kind of go from there. I've got a lot of great, it's a lot of great free educational stuff. I have published 4 books. I just published my 4th book, The Trading Journal. It's available on Amazon now. You can check out and see what it's all about, why you should use a journal, how to fill one out, emotional management, good trader habits. And it's just a really wonderful book. I'm super proud of it. It's available on Amazon. And because that's out, the first 3 books are essentially free, or I have free versions. And check those out on my YouTube. They're all available on Amazon, of course. You know me from Twitter at Big Cheds. Just to remind you, if you're looking for a trading exchange, check out Bing X. That's my favorite exchange. The link is available in the description. And of course, Bitcoin Live, where I do a twice a week full market report with the best team in the world that studies crypto. So look, we're going to look at Bitcoin. We'll look at Ethereum. We'll look at Solana today. I want to hear from you. I want to hear some good questions, some good trader questions, things you're dealing with. And I'm going to try to add value. I want to add some entertainment too. I mean, these are fun. This is for fun, these YouTube videos. So that is the deal. So where do we want to start with? What do we want to start with today? So let's start with the daily chart. It's a really interesting market because people are saying, oh, Bitcoin's holding up really well. And there's some truth to that. And I want to try to put that into perspective, because we know that equities are under a lot of pressure right now. We know, for example, like the SPX, that's a pretty nasty move here in the weekly. I was looking at it earlier. This is one of the lowest that's daily, one of the lowest weekly RSIs since like COVID, I believe. So yeah, it's like the lowest really since COVID. I think we could probably go a little bit lower. I'm actually not that I really usually talk about the SPX, but I'm kind of keeping an eye for like a weekly MA200 tag on the SPX. But SPX, the Qs, you can see there's been a lot of pressure here on the weekly time frame. When we look at Bitcoin in the weekly time frame, it too has taken pressure, but not as much per se like in the last week. And I think that's a good observation, but I still remain in the camp that we still have the momentum overhang from losing support, and it's very likely we're going to continue down in tag 72K. And that's my base case. That's what I continue to. Sorry, I was just reading the question. I'll get to your questions in a second. That's what I continue to think. I just think it's most likely we're going to tag the prior range. What we want to see in Bitcoin is we want to see it hold the SMA 50, right? Equal weighted. SMA means simple moving average 50, so all 50 candles are equally weighted. We know that's important because that was something that played a big role in the 2021 top when the price started to lose. It started to lose that MA 50. We don't want to see that happen. So how do we do that? How do we satisfy what seems like where momentum is pushing the price without breaking down, the structure of the chart? You can do that with a nice wick. The best case scenario, and look, I'm projecting out, I'm anticipating, which are things I recommend you don't do, but like a nice wick below the lower Bollinger Band and a recovery, like an intra-week recovery would be nice, where we close back up above the MA50, we tag and test and hold this prior level, and then we can continue with the trend. The trend meaning, the more high time frame trend, which is bullish, which is the rising MA200. So the best case for me, and I've been saying this for a little while, would be a very quick test and recovery, like a V recovery, an overreaction move, something like we had perhaps here, the dip below and the recovery. so we could retest the prior range without losing the MA50. That would be the best case in my view. And the daily chart's interesting. We see the daily chart. Obviously we see the range breakdown at 90K. Then we see and within that, we had the kind of local range break at 94.5. And when the price, broke down, I started to get really bearish here back right around Feb 24, Feb 25. I did a video here on my YouTube talking about what the significance was of losing 90K and what that meant. And you can kind of recommend you go back and watch that. That's going to be in the quick market updates playlist. It gives you a good sense. And everything I've been saying since then is kind of along those lines, based on that. And so I'm kind of still in that camp. We had the recovery with that strategic news, and the price has been dribbling down, failing to hold the 200, now below it. So it's interesting, and again, you can see we're in between price ranges here in the daily. What we see a descending supply trend, right? More aggressive sellers, and we see essentially an attempt to break that's turned back at the lower high right here. So we now have, and I talked about this in Bitcoin Live Wednesday. I'm doing I'll do a full market report there tomorrow night. As a reminder, these videos, I try to do these 3 days a week, Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday, but I definitely will skip YouTube because these are optional. These are fun. Bitcoin Live is not optional. I haven't skipped a report in 7 years. But in any case, I talked about we now have a reasonable overhead level, like a mid-channel level, such that if you're looking to take a long position, you can see an 88.5 level now has a defendable thesis such that you can manage your risk. It's the 2-level filter. So you keep an eye on that. But the price tried to bounce and was rejected. And we've been talking about this volume trend in the daily. I've been tweeting it out and talking about it doesn't necessarily presage or predict a direction, but it's a timing tool. And as the price is getting down towards the apex or the end of this consolidation range, you're thinking, okay, we're about to make a break soon. We had the break of the volume trend here in this red candle, broke the volume trend, and it tried to break out and it was rejected. So that was kind of a bad sign for bulls, that they failed here in the 2-level filter. So even that the momentum of the failed bounce and failed attempt to continue again with the trend here in the daily, it would have been a recapture of the 200. That's just more evidence that momentum is strong, the momentum overhang of losing 90K, and that we're probably still going to 72K. And then, of course, the 4-hour, all that underside MA200 action, aka a downtrend. You can see the overhead level here, right? And we talked a little bit about the attempted bounce here, building up into that attempted bounce, higher lows, and then the loss of the higher low here, right? And this was even suggestion that, okay, we're rolling over. So we've got a lot of momentum signs here in Bitcoin. Just to reset things, we're looking at the weekly chart, and the best case for me is going to be a quick retest of 72K while holding that. I'm on the wrong not playlist, but watch list. So to Ethereum, I mean, you've had some nice short action here on attempted recaptures of 2100, 2150. I would still continue to be fully bearish until the price reclaims 2100. I think that's a reasonable way to look at the chart. I gave you folks a pretty nice little short setup at 3400 right here, and you've done really well on that. You could have taken a look at longs here, and you should have abandoned that because that long thesis failed when the price was unable to hold 2100, 2150. So we're underside that. I see the price pushing towards 1500 range, but I don't see it holding. I still think it's most likely that we get some type of a test of 1300. Again, this, as a bull, I'd like to see Bitcoin do that quick wick and recovery. And I'm looking at low ball levels. I tweeted one out on Sol. I'll talk about that in a minute. It would make sense to tag 1300 with a quick wick and recovery. So that's a level I'm looking at in terms of my Ethereum posture. Ethereum versus Bitcoin continues to be weak. No suggestion of recovery. I've been bearish in this for a long time. I've been kind of debating people when they say the bottom's in, and I've been saying there's no evidence. Solana is in deep, deep, deep trouble. We know that. We'll go to the daily chart. Deep trouble here on several failed holds 215, 185, 160. Talked about the failed recapture here on the first and the second, and now really failing to hold at the 120 range. We're just below it, kind of just at it, but just below it. Now, based on momentum, okay, and based on the significance of this larger range break, you could say, let me zoom in a little bit and get a little bit better perspective. You could say, sure, there's support here. I put out a tweet, and I wasn't messing around. Like, people were like, oh, Ched, you're troll posting. Not really. I'm not. I don't really troll post a lot. Like people have me on notifications. I'm not a wizard. I'm doing my best, but I don't put out stuff to like troll. Like, I take what I do very seriously. And I said I've got a low ball bid in for Solana right around 45, and I think it's very reasonable for us to actually test this range. It's much lower than here, but just from the momentum loss of the 120 range, you've got support here, you've got a little bit of support here, but I just see the downward pressure. I see where I believe Bitcoin is heading. I see where I believe the crypto market's heading. So I still, whether it happens or not, fine. It's a low ball bid. It's a low ball. Where's the tweet? Well, these are low ball bids I put back in December of 20 after the local top, which wasn't yet a cycle top. But I put in these low ball entries back in December, and people were like, oh, you're crazy. And they literally all hit. And so, and these were low ball entries at the time. The point being that I've got low ball bids set around 45. You have a little order in there, and if the market, there's a good chance we face some like volatility panic in crypto. And so you want to have a bid in there, and you don't want to be scared to buy there. It would make a lot of sense. So it's just an area I'm targeting. I see momentum pushing forward towards there. If you want to go long, I think it's a tough spot to go long on Solana. I think maybe you can use 145, but I would really rather set up for another short if we can get a bounce into the 180 range. So similar to like Ethereum with 2100, I was talking about underside. I'd be looking at that 180 range for an underside test. So. Folks, you've been very patient. Nice to see the room filling up. Let me go ahead and read the chat room. And just as a reminder, these are 3 days a week. But I will occasionally skip if something's going on in my life. But I'm happy to, I'm really happy you're here. So let's check out the chat room. While I'm doing that, think about like a question you want me to answer. There's a decent chance I'll answer your question. What's up, Indy? Nice to see you. Dreamer, Zizon Cliff, Sakauk, and Jur, Shavala, Michael. Mikhail, and nice to see you, folks. So let's see, folks. How's it going? Thank you. Doing well. Indy says, can you tell us what might be about in Masterclass 2.0? Yeah, so I'm going to do, it's a great question. So the Masterclass tutorial playlist, the last one I've done, it's been a couple years ago. What I'm going to do is record a new one at some point in a couple, probably in this summer at some point, I'll try to. I'm going to look at the path of Bitcoin from 12 to 100K. All right. I'm going to look, and it didn't exactly go to 12, but that was a metaphor. It got to 15.5. But I'm going to look at the path of Bitcoin. Let's go to the weekly chart. And I'm going to look at the path of Bitcoin from the bottom. I'm going to start with why I was calling for, the 12K range from up here around 40K. How we got down there, how we saw the bottom, and then the ride up. There are a lot of great trading opportunities, long opportunities in the ride up. So I'm going to kind of talk about the major turning points, some of my tweets along the way. And what I'm going to try to do in the masterclass is explain volume, candlestick signals, classical charting basics, patterns. I'm going to try to explain everything. I'm going to try to create like a good, really basic guide, and that, what moving averages are, how to establish kind of what I just did, essentially with the new book, with the trading journal. This is what I try to do in my free tutorial. So I'm going to try to make this as good as the prior ones. These are unbelievable learning material. I think it's some of the best free stuff on Twitter, YouTube rather. So I'm going to try to do that, where I'm going to talk about the story of Bitcoin, from the prior top down to 12K, and from 12K to 100K, and what I think is going to happen next, and just like how to read a chart, how to read volume, and just a really basic everything. I'm gonna search through every question anyone's ever asked me on Twitter, make a big list, and I'm gonna try to answer everything in that video. That's the new masterclass. Someone says, thank you for your update. Thank you. Hey, Cheds, I'm familiar with your trading style. Hoping you can comment on something a little bit outside of your realm. How valuable do you think pattern recognition as a trader? I'd say not valuable. Because here's the thing, right? A pattern, people focus too much on patterns and not enough on price levels. Because like every pattern, so for example, if you take like a head and shoulders, and let's say it's like right here, and people are calling head and shoulders. Well, it's fine, but if you preemptively sell, you're going to get in a lot of trouble because a pattern is not a pattern until and this is the kind of stuff I'll do in the masterclass. A pattern's not a pattern until it breaks down, right? And it breaks down when it breaks the neck baseline, right? So if you're going to use a pattern, you have to identify both where it confirms, which would be a neck baseline, and then where it invalidates. In this case, it would be a right shoulder. So most people identify patterns and convince themselves it's going to do something before the price has given you that information, before the price actually breaks down, before the price gives you a clue. So what I always say is people should focus less on identifying patterns and more on identifying just clean price levels to structure your risk. Like with Ethereum, you don't need a price level. I'm sorry, you don't need a pattern to know that you're shorting below 2100. You don't need a pattern to know that if it loses 2100, the price is in big trouble. You know, the high time frame pivot, right? Here at 2100, 2150, roughly. So you don't necessarily need to like try to, to call it a pattern. And when the price is consolidating, people zoom way in, and they're like, I need to give this a name. I need to call this a bear flag or a bear pennant. And most of the time, it really doesn't matter. It's about price levels, not so much patterns. So you want to be very careful just pattern trading. And I think it's fine. But I think the reason people like it is, especially as a new trader, you say, oh, I've identified this pattern, so now I know what's going to happen next. You really don't. Because there's all this subtlety to patterns. Like, for example, like a head and shoulders. There is the right shoulder higher? Is the right shoulder lower? Is the neckline flat? Is it slanting one way or another? There's all these subtleties to what those things mean. And at the end of the day, what's most important is how you trigger. What's most important is are you triggering on a break of a key level? So that's generally my thought on why patterns aren't that valuable. I don't know if I've explained it that well, but that would be my point. Let's see. Z-Zone, in your opinion, what level or price would you say is a possible short setup? Are you thinking for Bitcoin? If you're thinking for Bitcoin, you would need a bounce, right? If you want to, the momentum is bearish right now. So if you want to short, I think you'd have to wait for a bounce into like the 88, 85 range. You had one here, worked out really nicely, right? Could have, and I saw a lot of people on Twitter, not a lot, but I saw several taking the trade. The bounce into a definable level where the price had rejected last time. We had the doji, we had a couple small bodies and the rollover, kind of a pseudo tower top, and then bounce right back to where the prior rejection was. So once you've established a level where bears have stepped in, when the bulls are accelerating into that level in the middle of a downtrend, you can target that. So if you want to short, you need a bounce, and I think you'd need a bounce into like 88.5. Matesha's opinion on SPX. I did that. How do you see, Marty says, how do you see the miners playing out? Let's take a look. Take a little look. Hope everybody's doing well, having a good Saturday. Appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. I'm very sorry I missed yesterday's video. I literally forgot. Let's see. Am I not on logarithmic? Okay, thank you. It should be on logarithmic. Someone asked me what made me switch. That was not intentional. I like to stay on log for crypto because of the big moves. So what's going on with these two charts? Not great. I mean, you got a nice hammer candle on Mara, but not a lot of volume. So sure, it's a nice hammer candle. I like the construction of it. It's nearly shaven top, which means there's no upper shadow, long lower shadow. It's at the lower Bollinger Band, but there's no real volume on it. I'm going to kind of step back and say Mara really needs to get back up above maybe 1350, okay? You've got a really well-defined supply trend here, falling supply trend, and you got a bounce, okay. You can see where it held. Let's look at it in the weekly chart. Let's take a look at Mara. Okay, yeah, I don't like it. It's priced below a falling MA200 in the weekly. So it's not a great, in the weekly chart, candle's not that great. I mean, the daily one's pretty good. Let's look at Riot. Let's take a look here. Oh, let's see there. So Riot is a choppy sideways chart, not much of a trend on the weekly. The daily chart is trying to hold here right at range low. And again, I'd want to see more volume on this hammer candle to have a little bit more confidence that there's some type of a, quote unquote bottom on it. I would actually rather wait for a recapture of roughly 9 to have any kind of confidence to go long on this chart. You could take a short if it is able to bounce into that level. I really don't like the chart much, though, because there's no real trend. So that were my thoughts on those two charts. Let me just check in the chat room, see how everybody's doing. Appreciate your patience. Cliff says, I'm liking how well XRP and Tron are holding up. It's very true, and it's interesting to see. And TRX is just steady. TRX is like, yeah, what's going on with the market? What's going on with equities? You folks are calling crash. TRX is chilling. It's held where it's needed to hold, right around 22.5, and it's got a very clear, in my view, overhead level. If the price can flip 25 cents, you take a clear long. It's very clearly a long trigger. So TRX looks good. It's been one of the best looking charts. OM is still holding where it needs to hold, right around 620. If that fails, I think it's probably going all the way down to the low to the mid 4s. It's still a very nice chart. It's hard to argue with, seeing this as a bullish chart, given the price in relation to a rising MA200. It's a very strong trend. So it's holding up, Cliff. Those are my thoughts on it. That OM and TRX are definitely showing some relative strength. Let's check in and see what everybody else has to say. What is going on? Thank you, Andre. Says enjoy the weekend. You too. Love Qatar. What's up, Muhammad? Nice to see you, brother. Why am I so cool, Dano? Dano says, why are you so cool, Cheds? Man, I beat cancer. Like, I'm alive. You want to know why I'm so cool? It's like, I'm just happy to be here. And, of course, my entire cancer memoir is free. I was raised well, and I know I'm lucky in life, just like who I am and the chances I've had. And, I know I'm smart, which is nice, and that helps me out. I try to be grateful. So I have some grateful appreciation, and I try to be really nice to people. So I think my mom raised me well, my parents raised me well, but honestly, it's just like literally I beat cancer is probably the biggest thing. So I try to take nothing for granted. Why do I do these videos? What I would love teaching you folks? Well, when I started trading, people helped me, and I struggled so much. And so it feels good to give back. It feels good to help out. And so, I appreciate the compliment, but honestly, it's just, I'm alive. And it's so that's why I volunteer. That's why I do, all these things, is I want to give back. So, let's see here. I talked about the SOL. Yes, Seb Smith, my low ball thesis on SOL. It kind of lines up with my 72K thesis on Bitcoin. Same with the Ethereum low ball level, right around 1,300. I talked about OM. Let's see. Thoughts on MicroStrategy daily MA200 test. Thank you, Indy. Appreciate your comments. Thank you, man. Thoughts on MicroStrategy daily MA200 test. All right, let's take a look. I think I have that on this other watch list. Yeah. Let's take a look at MicroStrategy. So thoughts on MicroStrategy daily MA200 test. Yeah. Although I don't know that it's the 200 test. I think he really needs to see it hold like 240. Yes, MicroStrategy's held that 200 since forever. It's really held it since March 2023. At $23, we're 10x plus from there, and you see how nicely the bulls have responded. So should the price start to close below or fail to hold, the MA200, that would be, that would be a sign of weakening trend. You don't want to see that, but it's got some support here. First of all, you got this window. Looks like window or gap. Looks like we're finding some local support. Got some support around 260, and I think it needs to hold. I intentionally said that 3 times in a row. Needs to hold. Right around 230. So, like say Bitcoin does some kind of a panic wick. You could see this as a level where it would wick down to and potentially hold. So I think these are both important levels. I would call really the 230 level to be more important. Somebody asked me about WIF. So WIF essentially made my measured move. I talked about WIF when it broke down from the $1 range. I said the measured move is roughly 35 cents. I said it here on Twitter. I don't know where the tweet is. You can find it, and people are like, you're crazy. I mean, I know I'm crazy, but it essentially hit the measured move, which is interesting. Right? You take the height, essentially the height of the consolidation range, and it hit 35 cents. I still think it's absolute trash. I mean, you're like, don't go long in a chart. Don't ever go long in a chart that looks like this. Okay? This is just an absolutely brutal chart. Severe downtrend pressure. WIF looks really bad. I'd say it's probably going lower. There's nothing really redeeming to me about this chart. So, folks, give me a couple more questions. I will wrap up soon. Just to remind you, my new book is out, The Trading Journal. It's available on Amazon. Waiting for some more reviews. If you've already bought the book, I know many of you have. Please fill out a review. Good, bad, whatever you think. Only one so far. Please, please, please fill out a review. I want to hear your thoughts. Because that new book is out, Trading Quotes, I've been making the free version. I recently published, 11 days ago, recently published weeks 5 and 6. I'm eventually going to do all 52 weeks, plus those quarterly wrap-ups you see in the book. I think it's an awesome book. I've got the free version of my cancer memoir and the free version of Trading Quotes. Of course, we've talked about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Maybe we'll take a couple more questions before we wrap it up here. And so my next stream, by the way, on YouTube will be Tuesday, folks. Last question, Cheds. People are thinking we bottom and consolidate. Well, I hope we bottom and consolidate. I don't know which. Like no V-shaped recovery. I'd say definitely not. We need a V-shaped recovery. There's some strong momentum for Bitcoin. The importance of losing this range is significant. And again, the lack of structure in between ranges, no evidence here of any kind of a bottoming process yet. So I think really the best case for bulls, and I've been saying this for several weeks, will be a quick V, a quick wick down and recovery, a quick wick and retest of the prior range so that we still hold the MA50. We do not want to start to trade below the MA50 as we did here back in December of 2021. Cheds Sakuk says, how often you check the charts daily? I mean, like all the time. I don't know, 30, 40 times a day, maybe. I mean, like all the time. I'm always looking at the chart. This is what I do. Is I trade, I teach, I watch the charts for you folks. For you folks who have jobs, you can't watch the chart all day. I look at the chart literally all day. So how many times do I check the chart? I mean, I'm always looking at it. And maybe I'm addicted to my phone, maybe not. But I want to stay on top of the price action. I take my role, my account, being a big account, pretty seriously. So like I said earlier, I don't put out I don't troll. I don't do a lot of meme stuff. I try to just put out I put out quotes and stuff, good wisdom, but I try to put out good, clean charts. I try to stay on top of the price action for people, just to give you folks a sense of what's going on. Here was Trading Wisdom Lesson 3, stay calm under pressure, stuff like that. So I look at this stuff all the time. I really try to stay on top of it. When I'm traveling, I am traveling coming up later this month, so I will be skipping YouTube during that time. But I'll be on Twitter here and there, and definitely still Bitcoin Live. But I'm always looking at the chart. So sure, I'll take a look at Super. Peter, it's just a bad chart. I know someone in Bitcoin Live is requesting this, and I don't know why. It's just a really ugly chart. I'd say bears are in complete control. Should you get another bounce to maybe 63, 64 cents level, this might set up for a nice short. I would much rather be a bear than a bull. Hopefully you're not holding this chart. It looks like it's going lower. So this is a rough looking chart. I do not look like Super. So folks, this has been a nice little update. I appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you've seen all my great free content. As a reminder, if you're looking for a trading exchange, check out BingX. It's my favorite exchange. Link in the video. Check out my free videos, Bitcoin Live, twice a week. I do the full market analysis, not just this kind of quick skim here. Every Wednesday, Sunday night. When you sign up, you get access to the entire team's work. This is the best team in the world that studies crypto, and we don't get together and like decide what to say. It's independent analysis with different styles and different methods. I'm super, super proud of that. Of course, I'm on Twitter, and you folks are here on YouTube. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your great questions. Thank you for your presence. Every time you show up and you comment and you leave a chat, you give me more motivation to keep doing these. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I will be back on Tuesday, and we'll go from there, folks. So thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Big Cheds out. Peace out, everybody. Have a great